Howdy, boys and girls. On today's episode of Tartan Design Talk, we figured we were going to finally put it down. Erik has been bugging me, and many of you have, for a long time about doing a Nordic Heritage Tartan. It's one that's been in the back of my brain for a long time, but life gets in the way. However, I knew that I had to do it, so I said, look, we got to schedule a time, sit down, and do this thing. And I figured, while we're doing it, let's actually record it so you guys can see kind of the process that we go through and the amount of thought that we kind of put into the designs. So, Erik.
I thought I just came to you in a fever dream.
Well, that's how many of my thoughts come to me, is fever dreams and showers. Yes.
Hey, on a scale of 1 to Oseberg cart, how are you feeling today?
I'm not quite feeling quite that aggro.
Okay.
But yes.
Well, then you're not a true Viking.
Darn it.
Yeah. So I brought in bits and bobs of research materials just to backstop. Actually, it accidentally wound up backstopping some of the stuff we've been intuiting for this. So a couple of quick notes. When we had talked about wanting to include a marled thread.
Yes.
Like some earth tones and stuff.
Yep.
That is actually a really good idea from a historical nerd standpoint, because the dyeing fabric was expensive and more labor intensive, and a lot of people, like common people, just didn't do it. So what they would do is they would look at what sheep they had on the farm
and twist two colors together.
Right, or just make some dark yarn and some lighter yarn based on the sheep, and then do patterns that way or shades that way.
Yeah, comb it together.
Yep. And as I mentioned to you there before, there really is not much evidence of anything like tartan in the Viking period, but there is definitely examples of tartan that predates it. Sure. So they're like, I can show you a couple of really cool examples in this.
Sure.
And the coolest thing of all I got here is that my spouse lent me her notes from Color Congress back in 2002, which includes natural dyes experimentations, many of which relate to Nordic stuff. Bottom line is that they had access to just about all the colors we would like to play with.
Okay.
The one thing that the two most important points to make is that, one, in most of Scandinavia and most of the writings and stuff, the indication is that blue, driven from woad, was the most common. It's the most common color mentioned in like the sagas.
Right.
It was probably very popular and indicated some clout.
Okay.
The other thing which is really cool, which I hadn't quite realized until Jen pointed out to me, was that the one thing that's unique to the Vikings, to Scandinavia, was these colors of purple, which they got from a locally growing lichen. Acroleachia tartaria, locally known as Kurkje lichen, and they could get anything from lighter plum like that to a very dark purple like that. Okay. And this is from research that was done by this one's Marit Astjord Andresson from Norway, and this one's from Ellen Kjelmo, also in Norway. But basically, so this is people actually recreating the dyes from those lichens, like using that actual dye stuff. So if we do want to incorporate a purple, that would be something that really would differentiate it, and a lot of people don't really realize it. A lot of the other dye stuffs like madder, woad, and just the sheep, anybody could have, but this was kind of unique to Scandinavia, so that's kind of a differentiator.
Got it.
We definitely talked about using blue and earth tones and stuff, but basically, if you want to compare some of these actual period natural dyes, like what Vikings actually wore and had, to colors that we have from the mills, that might be fun to do.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But, that's next level shit. We talked about various color symbolism that we could play with, and I don't know where you want to start with talking about that, but there's a lot of different ways to go with this.
Agreed. And just for the record, there were no Viking tartans.
Correct.
Or Nordic tartans or anything like that.
Yep.
So this is a modern thing that we are doing, kind of as a tip of the hat. Now there were, Viking influence, shall we say, in
Right.
certain clans.
Yep.
Some more than others, but
more than I realized in some ways. Like apparently, I was talking to Chris Hill about this, and that guy who everybody talks about, whose name I always forget,
Ragnar Lothbrok.
Summerlead. Yes, he was one of the progenitors of the McDonald's and the McDonald of the Isle.
Okay.
Previously, people thought he was Irish, but turns out, according to the DNA, he was Norse.
Yes.
And so basically, all of those clans are related to the McDonald's and stuff. Theoretically, could say they have some Norse roots to them.
Or the islands up, the northern islands, and
So for thread counts, I think we just make up what we want. But just for fun, I wanted you to see this is this pre-Viking. We're talking like more like 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. This is what some of the tabby cloths looked like from Denmark.
Okay.
These are all from archaeological finds in Denmark.
Yeah,
these all predate.
So still a tartan-esque pattern.
Exactly. But they predate. I mean, that looks very tartan-esque.
Yeah, or like a Prince of Wales check kind of thing, like how busy it is in there.
The thing is that sometimes they were actually doing this with colors. Sometimes they were just using. There's some examples where all it was making the difference in the colors was the spin on the yarn.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, I could see.
Yeah.
Keep it here.
Sure.
I could see doing as kind of a nod to this thing. I could see doing a bit of a gradient where it's a quick succession of threads back and forth.
And we like gradients.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I think again, I felt really validated with some of what we were intuiting about what we wanted to do when I was looking at this stuff.
Agreed.
So yeah.
Some of my thoughts for color palettes to kind of go with is knowing that they had a lot of earth tone type colors, a lot of browns, but they did in fact use color as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
My initial instinct was to do, okay, let's do like a weathered kind of color palette for multiple reasons. A, it's popular right now. B, it's a good looking color palette. C, that's what people kind of expect. The drabs and in the
see, but that's what gets me is it's like there's two lines of thinking about it. Is like there's the drab stuff because there's the very homespunny kind of thing where they didn't use a lot of dye, and then there's the folks who had means, the nobility, who definitely had a lot of color.
Yes,
and everywhere in between. So I'm biased in favor of jewel tones and the old Wilson Bannockburn palettes. I love those.
Yep.
And just a quick example. That's a color recreation of one of the Oseberg burials.
Right.
Again, blue, reddish orange.
Yeah.
Typical runestone coloring: gold, black, red, blue.
Yeah. No, I recognize the color existed. I didn't want it. That's why what I was going to say was I didn't want to just do straight weathered because it needs something more than that.
Oh yeah.
So kind of where I was going with it was taking, let's say, muted kind of colors, sort of akin to the Wilson's Bannockburn stuff, like maybe a muted blue, a little bit more earthy pastel-y, mixed in with a feel of a weathered, so kind of a mixing or melding of the weathered and muted. I'd say absolutely use the marled yarns. Again, that kind of validates what we were already thinking, or what I was already thinking at least.
Yep. Very much so.
The getting that like the visual texture. I really love marled yarns. I'm happy that more mills are doing it now. And then kind of somehow incorporate a gradient within it as well. Again, kind of validated by some of the pictures you're showing me there of the old timey cloth.
Yeah.
Or historical cloth.
That's so old timey. It's old timey.
Exactly.
That's like old timey.
Yeah, it's
beyond old timey.
It predates old school. It's preschool.
Yeah, it's preschool. We haven't even built the frickin' school yet.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think it's and culturally, I think it's all going to work really well too, because like when you think about Nordic culture, you tend to think about like rock, stone, the rough landscape of Scandinavia and the north. So like the marled yarns give you that earthy rock kind of thing, and then the blues and stuff like we're talking about, you've got all these different iconic things. Like we talked about when we went to Pottstown.
Sitting around the table at dinner.
Like Zach and
Amber
Susie. Yeah, we're talking about amber, very important. So you got gold with that, and then the blues for the ocean, and greens for the ocean.
Yep. And for Odin and stuff like that, it's kind of
Yeah.
tying in the symbolism of the mythology and the religion into it as well a little bit.
Yeah.
That all makes sense to me. The one thing I'm using the House of Edgar Hebridean range here because we're probably going to have the cloth woven by them because they have a really good selection of marled yarns. The one thing that I want to kind of point out is now these are some of the marled yarns with a gradient. I don't know if I would go
It's a very extreme gradient.
I don't think I would go that much.
A little muddy.
Exactly. Yes, it gets a little muddy. This one, again, it's a little bit too gradient.
Wait, that's it. That's perfect.
Yes.
That's the one. It's the only runestone guy. Yeah. Perfect.
No, but the thing I wanted to point out was not having just marled yarns, trying to incorporate, maybe a charcoal and a mid-gray kind of thing in with maybe a solid blue to sort of let it play off of each other versus just having straight marled. So it has like a tweed kind of feel.
Yeah, I think you want some contrast.
Yeah.
I mean, I trust you not to make that obnoxious. You know what I mean? Like I don't want it to be like one stripe is just like wah, and the rest of the design is lost. Yeah, it's all marled. But yeah, I mean,
you're using it. I won't say sparingly, but using it as an accent to give it depth, not as the overwhelming. This is a marled tartan.
Because I find that interesting because for you to say that because I see the marled threads on these like that's the base. You know what I mean? And all the color is built on top of that. So like but is that how you want to think about this, or do you want
to? Here's we could think about it that way. It depends on how much marled yarns. I guess you're kind of right. Like this one doesn't have a lot of marled yarns, but it still feels like the other yarns are sitting on top of the marled layer.
I think this is how your eye is going to process it.
Yeah,
to some extent. I mean, this is maybe that one's a bit of an exception to that rule, but not as marled as these others.
But I was kind of thinking, now I don't know. I'm going back and forth on full marled and flat and marled.
Well, I'm the crazy experimental person out of the two of us, so I obviously would like to play around. I'd like to mix it up a bit.
Mix it up meaning both. Yeah, marled and flat.
I mean, again, like look, you don't really have that effect, but I wore this kilt today for a reason.
Right.
Because I've talked before about how I thought this was close to what I would envision in some ways for colors for
Nordic,
for something Nordic. So like I could see this like this grayish bluish being marled, but the green or that blue being a solid.
Yeah.
And then monkeying around with it like that. But
now so thread colors.
Yeah, I want you to use every single color in this tapestry.
Fair.
Now I call that because that's actually a pretty good. That one. Yep.
Okay.
That's the Osberg burial tapestry, very very famous, and more or less this is what the recreated colors look like.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I don't think we have to, but again, it just drives home the point that the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages were not drab.
Yeah.
Like
because they're dark doesn't mean that they're black. Yeah. All right. So, tartan designer. Let's look at some colors. So, colors I was thinking was either probably 6 or 7. I'm starting to like a little bit more in the design. It gives it a little bit more something to play with. So the ones that I had written down before we had this discussion were marled gray, so like a medium gray, so maybe something along that line, and a charcoal,
something granite.
Yeah, I don't want to do black. So I was going to say maybe a charcoal to sort of a marled charcoal to kind of emulate the black, but not have it be a flat black, and then find one that it tones well with in the gray. So I can't tell if like 152 would be better or 151.
I think it's going to be subtle if they're next to each other. Now, if the black winds up being like guards on another color or something like that, then that's
I think it's less subtle if they're next to each other. When they're juxtaposed, you'll definitely be able to tell a difference. If it was these two, it's real tough.
That's really tough.
Especially if they're further away. But if it's right up on it, you can tell. Okay. So marl gray.
That's a little. My gut reaction is I like this one, but
this one has a little bit of brown in it. If we're going to use a brown, I don't know that we're going to do that because we're going to have to see how the brown tones with that one. You want them to all play nice together. And if it's a little more reddish brown, this is a little bit more bluish, then it kind of fights.
I will say of all the colors that we're talking about so far, like I'm looking at your list here, I see your notes.
Right.
Brown would be the color I'd be most likely to sacrifice.
So marl gray, we're going to call that shade 154. And then we'll try 152. Oh, shoot. No, 154 for the charcoal, excuse me. And then 152 for the other, potentially. If we were going to do a brown, see, now that would tone well with that, but if we wanted to do the gradient thing, we could do it with that one. If we wanted to do a barley kind of brown, but we're going to use see, but that would go well with the amber, depending on if we have an amber.
Amber gold.
Yeah.
No, here's your comparison for amber.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably lean towards this, which is gold. Is there? No. Is that gold? No, this is M yellow. Is that one? So that's muted yellow.
Yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Call it mellow yellow. Okay. Yeah, I can see the M yellow.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll write that down. That's M yellow. And it goes back to, it's in their muted color palette. So it's sticking with that sort of muted. Now the blue is going to be the one you're most passionate about.
As a history nerd, yes.
Yes.
Blue. I'm biased anyway. I just love blue. But
so I think the FS blue is probably their muted shade.
It's a nice stormy blue, which I like. Again, North Sea kind of
North Sea, stormy skies,
and
storm on the ocean.
It makes you think of woad.
How do you feel azure versus azure or azure?
I think I usually say azure
versus the FS blue.
Which one?
They're very similar.
These two, you mean?
Yeah.
Tough call. I want to say the FS.
I think I might agree with you. I'm realizing that it's going to be, if we're using wrong gray.
I don't want this thing to be so
drab.
Yeah. I'm worried about it becoming drab.
Yeah.
I mean,
so that
drab is very Nordic.
Yeah.
in another sense, but
my thought would be to have kind of a balanced design of blue and gray be the main two colors. Again, so we're incorporating the weathered and the muted. At the same time, we're also they're cooler colors. So cooler climate makes me think of winter and those kind of things.
And we'll say I think the right gold color will pop nicely with those.
So I don't disagree. All right. So let's grab.
Now, do you have the number? You're rattling off numbers and stuff. Do you just
FS blue?
So you already have them in here. Okay.
Yeah. They're all in the Tartan Designer.
Okay.
So FS blue. We have the naturals. So there's a charcoal is 154. Now this is going to show as flat in here, but it's actually a marled one.
Understood.
Shade 152. So the gold we have is M yellow.
Yellow.
Red and red. I would do. I'd want it to be, complement the blue. So I'd probably do the scarlet's not too bad, or the red. The dark ruby maybe a bit.
Unless you do more than one red, you do a gradient with the red. But I thought we were doing gradients with the other colors.
6. So here is 6. We could add, if we did, I agree. I would probably do a gradient with the other colors. Maybe a gradient between the gray and the blue. Maybe add a little bit of blue into the gray section. Yeah, we'll
get there.
toy with that in a sec.
I'm kind of torn. I mean, between these two, I'm really torn which one I like.
These are very,
very similar.
Yeah. It's virtually, yeah. Like if you mix them up, you can't even tell.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll try our red. We'll just do that. Or what's the scarlet? Scarlet, yes. The only other thing we could play with would be like a rusty kind of earthy, coppery red, like terracotta. Redwood maybe a little light.
It's just a little drab.
Yeah,
let's go with some bright color.
Yeah, a little aggro.
I mean, either of these all of these they do feel like colors that you could achieve with natural dyes.
Yeah,
so I like that. And honestly, the other thing from a modern standpoint, having the red, white, and blue, that's most of the colors of the Scandinavian flags. So there is that, and yellow since we have the gold.
Yeah.
So
design-wise, do you want something that has a stripe at each pivot? Like the Kilts and Culture one has the black stripe here and the white stripe here, or do you want like an empty section with maybe more of the gradient in the empty section and have the gold in the other area?
I tend to like the gradient in the empty section, and then when we do the marketing, I can say that part of the tartan represents Gunungagap.
Good old Gunungagap.
Yeah, good old Gunungagap, the primordial space of which the universe eventually appeared from. Yeah.
Okay.
Yar.
That feels Vikesque.
No, seriously, I do like gradients going into a void
Nothingness.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Now makes me want to put the charcoal at the center of that gradient and go out from there. So let's start with center. See if we do it this way, it's going to be dark at the center. So it'll be like more charcoal. I wanted to use it as more of an accent because if we can do this, well, screw it. Let's do it and see what happens. All right.
You can always do more than one design.
So it's going to be charcoal. Then we'll do a little bit of gradient.
Process is going to take
there
days.
Yes. And then barley and marled. And then go into
that looks like that archaeological specimen now.
Kind of does. Done.
presenting our Bronze Age Scandinavian tartan.
All right. So then we can do, if we're not going to have, see, yellow, the M yellow and the scarlet are such strong colors, and we want to use them a little sparingly.
I agree.
So if we have the scarlet in the center of the black or the charcoal section, then it will be, the center of the universe was red. But it kind of shoots.
I was kind of joking about that, honestly.
Well, it's all part of the symbolism. We're going to try to bake into it and how it feels. So let's now, but here's kind of where I'm going with where I was going before. I know you and Ian both jokingly say that I have a style. You can tell it's a Rocky design.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I section off like McDonald Clam Reynolds, not my design, but had like that white stripe to kind of section off the two halves, the two main areas. If I use scarlet as one pivot and M yellow as the other pivot, then it'll be less Rocky-esque design. If I don't use scarlet as a pivot, I would probably have it outline the blue section and then use yellow as the other pivot as the bolder of the two colors. So let me play with it for a sec, but I'm already acknowledging that
we've had red with the gold as guards on the red.
I'll play with that too. So do this. Actually, let's flip these and do more blue. Ooh, I have an idea. Aha. And then do the charcoal to outline. All right. Are you ready? Ready to be blown away?
Are you ready?
All right.
Okay.
Here's the beginning of the end. The beginning of me playing with the numbers here. So change this to 2. And then we'll start into the
I think you need some kind of a white cream color in here.
Well, we'll get there.
Mm.
You're down, big shifter.
Ice. Because we do come from the land of the ice and snow.
Understood. Not from a land down under.
No, didn't get that far. They did get as far as North Africa.
Fjords with thunder. Oh. Fjords is my Nordic word of the day.
Currently. It's all you can afford.
This isn't what I had in my head, but I'm not hating
kind of cool
how it the blending there. Do we want to sacrifice the red for a white? Do we want to leave?
I like the red.
I took it out.
I know.
So we can add it back. Oh, hey now.
Wolf.
Well, hold on.
That looks familiar. I mean, although that was what I suggested at one point.
How do we feel about the red as the pivot versus the gold as the pivot?
You're gonna have to show me the gold as a pivot again, so I can say yes that. And that's elegant, but it's not exciting.
I can add red somewhere else.
Yeah.
So let's do this. So I can the red in the black or charcoal, excuse me, isn't bad. Here, I can do this. Just adds a little bit of zing.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Yeah,
that's nice.
And if you want to move it towards the center, I can increase this to 20. I don't know. I don't think it looks great moving it further in.
No, I liked it better the other way. But
another thought would be, and I don't think I like this idea, but I'm going to check it out anyway. Yeah, now it's getting real close to McLean Elect buoy. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's not enough interest anyway.
Yeah. Would you, for the blue, would you want things added like a transition into the blue? Let's try that. I could still obviously play with the colors within
not
it.
Bad.
Yeah.
Still a little muddy to me. I see where you're getting the gradient effect.
Yeah.
Here, but it just feels kind of weak there. And I can't decide what I'm feeling about the desert right now. I almost feel like I want a different blue or a white or something. It's just like
there's no desert in here. This is all barley.
Okay, barley, same difference. That tan color is not doing much for me.
I can replace this with the desert. That'll definitely give it some more. So I'm going to do that. Oh, I did that not drop.
Kind of like that. I can't decide how Scandinavian it feels.
Yeah, that's...
There's a difference between Scandinavian and Viking. Viking just means pirates anyway. So, yeah. But something about this I like. But
feeling a little more Swedish.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's. I'm also wondering if a darker blue or something else for the base instead of that blue. I mean, these colors do look like my pictures. You know, like flip back to the Oseberg for a second. You know, we don't have any green in there, but you're getting the reds and the blues for sure.
Right.
Images may vary depending on the monitor, but you know. Oseberg Heritage. If you always wanted to wear the Oseberg tapestry on your butt, now you can.
I like it, but it doesn't feel...
It doesn't feel Nordic.
Yeah.
I like it, but...
I'm going to replace those.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Okay,
no black and yellow tartan either.
Black and yellow. Yeah, we don't like the penguins. Instead of having the main, like have the transition be the black or the charcoal. That may help to break it up a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe do the desert as the center around the red.
Okay.
Kind of thing. Or, I don't know. Like, just doing that kind of helped it.
Pretty cool.
If we wanted to leave a little bit of the brown, like in this area right in there. Feeling a little, there wasn't enough contrast before, so now we're getting into more contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say that the shade 154 in real life is pretty darn close to black.
Mm-hmm.
And on the screen, it's a little lighter.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So this is a touch lighter in this area than it would actually be. It would provide a bit more contrast. What if we got rid of that brown?
I was about to say, I think I want less brown.
Well, less is essentially none.
Okay, so none.
Grab that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm definitely feeling a little better about it.
Yeah.
We could do another transition in the center to a red.
Now it's looking like Glendor.
Okay. A Swedish Glendor. Owen Glendur. Okay. This is going to be dumb, but I'll do it anyway. Let's see what happens.
I like that.
We could also make it white since we took out that brown. We have an extra color to play with. We can make that a white stripe.
I'd be curious.
That way we can also incorporate essentially all the flag symbolism. We have the Danish, the Swedish, Finnish.
And ice, frost.
All right, so let's get rid of desert. We'll do an M white. It's a little more creamy.
White.
Definitely going to be a contrast.
I don't know if I like it.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like it either.
Yeah.
Darn it. I want to try one more thing. One more thing.
You said 15 minutes ago.
One.
We should probably stop.
Just one more thing.
Just one more thread.
Oh, whoops. What if we did, back to the white thing, what if we added like a thin white? It's still probably going to overpower. Or, I don't want to do this. It almost leans pink in kind of a, not bubblegum pink, but it has a little bit of reddish in it. Putty? Just to tone down the white, but give it something. But where I was going to go with it was, what if we did, back to this thing.
We use it as a guard or something?
Use it as a real thin. Nah, it's too much.
Yeah, that makes me think of
not subtle.
The Navy tartan or something.
Yeah, it's not subtle. This is a good. It has a movement to it. It reminds me of kind of like the waves of an ocean going through. So I'm feeling this as a general idea, and I like bringing the blue into the other section to kind of balance it out. The only other reason I would want to bring the white in is if we wanted to incorporate flag symbolism, which has been done a billion different ways.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we have to.
Red, white, blue, yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we have 75% of those. We could, if we wanted to bring in white, we could bring in white for that reason. But I don't know if it would feel too harsh. Yeah, this doesn't feel like a super contrasty one. Like if you had black and white, it pulls the contrast ends of the spectrum apart for it.
I was starting to say, what if you just had snuck white in as the
guard on the yellow?
As a guard on the yellow, or inverse that, like white with the yellow is the guard on the white. But a little weird.
Yeah, it's like it's the shine of the stone, the stone off the amber stone. Like I'm trying to work in some kind of like playing with the light of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you're getting a glow. I just can't decide if I like it from a design standpoint.
Yeah.
Hmm.
For those out there, when you're designing a tartan, there's a lot of just staring at the screen and living with it for a little bit.
Yep.
You need to cut all those out of the video. just an hour of you and me just
It's a tartan design ASMR.
Yeah. I don't think that would be very interesting. All right. What if we?
What would Mac do? Tartans that make you say,
No.
No. Ugh.
I think I like the gold up top, or as the pivot more. It definitely feels different than my other designs. I cannot be accused of that on this one. You hear me, Ian? I want to get the white in there, but it's not. It's gonna overpower it.
Yeah. Maybe it's a super light gray. And what are we using now? You're using a marled 154 and 152. And what about AM gray?
That's this.
It
can be done.
I like the blue. I like the blue tinge to that.
But it's not a substitute for white. It's not close enough to white. There's nothing between here and here. Neither of those are good options.
Yeah.
This is the problem I run into all the time.
How about apricot?
Apricot? Yes.
I like apricot.
It makes me hungry.
It is
lunchtime. We could add a
so familiar. As this is right now, it just looks so familiar to me. I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah.
It's, to me, that's pretty different.
Okay.
Especially when you consider those are going to be marled.
Maybe it was the disir of my family or sending me a vision. This is the tartan. You have known this all your days. Search your feelings.
Search your feelings, Luke. You know it to be true. No. I think adding the charcoal guards on that yellow. Let it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It might grow on me.
I'm feeling pretty good about it. It says Nordic. It has a soul to it. It's not screaming like the Nordic, tough guy, 100%. But it's not.
Right. No, I don't want to scream Nordic tough guy. I think that's
understood.
Because it's but it does look like our girlfriend here.
Yeah.
Our Osberg lady that we were looking at earlier. She actually looks a lot like the outfit they've got on this image.
Here's an idea as well. I'm gonna one more thing. Okay. Just one more.
Just one more thing. What's that you say, Mr. Camera? You're asking what is the book I'm referencing? Well, this is The Viking Way, which is probably the single best resource right now on Viking sociological, spiritual thought, and stuff like that. So hence the focus on burials and burial customs. Very, very weighty tome, hard to read, but really good. Oh, I kind of like it, but that's my blue phase. Yeah,
your blue period. It's going too. I think it goes too far off the reservation. Maybe if we did
starting to look more like a band tartan.
Something. Well,
I love how you keep saying we should stop and you keep going.
Yeah, I know. All right.
That is so you.
But I'm not. I don't think I've improved it with any of the recent changes. That I think is a good spot to stop.
Yeah.
Means I'm stagnating, or we have the right design, or a little of both. So, okay.
It is beautiful, especially with the marl. I think this would be a beautiful design.
It has movement to it. It
reminds me Viking enough.
It
for
reminds
guys?
me of. Honestly, this is I'm going into my marketing brain, but it has movement. It reminds me of waves and ocean.
Yeah.
It reminds me of stormy weather, as well as
now we did not mess around with thread counts at all.
No.
Not saying we have to.
Yeah. I don't think we do that yet. I think we live with this for a bit and then we tweak later on if we need to.
Okay. I will save the Photoshop file for you.
Yes. Pretty pleased. Excellent. All right. Cool. Update coming soon. All right. We are back. This is part 2. Like any good design or designer, we kind of let the design rest for a little bit.
Yeah.
Make sure that we have the right finished product.
Let it percolate.
Let it percolate. Thank you.
Let your subconscious work on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And being me, I couldn't let it rest for long. So I immediately started playing with it the next day and changed a couple things. And basically, I forgot to have the guys record the process of me tweaking around stuff. So we have some of the different versions that we kind of went through and some of the rationale why we changed things up and how we came up with the final design. So this is the design on the screen now is actually where we kind of ended the first segment. And in looking at this, the first thing that kind of struck me was that I wanted the gray section a little bit larger. That's going to be the marled yarn section.
Right.
So I wanted it to kind of, have a little bit more, you to be able to see that there's marling in there.
So not much point otherwise.
Exactly. It's one of the key components that Erik said that kind of stuck with me in the first part was people just this vision of people actually sitting there trying to figure out how to get colors out of black and white and just saying, oh, well, we're just going to mix them together in different quantities and proportions to get shades of gray and that effect.
Or people.
Exactly.
Basically.
So that really stuck with me. So I really wanted to, really wanted to include the marling in it. I think that tells the story of it to some degree.
It's just earthy anyway.
Yeah.
It just feels, it's very much a trend right now. But it's not a bad thing at all. It just gives it a nice earthy feel. And we're talking about earthy people, so why not?
Yeah, a good texture to it, visual texture.
Yeah, exactly.
Describe
and I like it because the marled yarn, especially in the grays, remind me of rock and things, like the fjords and the stony shores where the ships landed and that kind of thing. So that was kind of where my head was at with wanting to keep the gray.
Yep,
so
100%.
Yeah.
So from there, the other thought we kind of said was, I really want to include the white. I couldn't think of a way to get the white in when we're trying to have it be guards on things or reverse it with the yellow. Like it wasn't coming to me. And Ian actually came up with the idea when I was showing the things around the shop. Ian said, well, what if you did something like Campbell of Argyle, where it's alternating yellow and white stripes? So I thought that was an interesting idea to get it in without having the white overpower the entire design, but you could kind of split it. So that's the next thing that we came up with was adding in the white and having it alternate with the yellow. That way we can say that it truly does have all the flag colors of all the Nordic and Scandinavian countries.
Yeah.
It's and the territories. Well, Nordic Council.
Nordic Council was the term
Norse,
you decided you wanted to hit. So
yeah,
definitely that.
Exactly. I wanted to include all of the countries in the region are the ones that have that type of heritage. We kind of ran to a little bit of a not stumbling block, but a thing with the name Norse versus Nordic versus the Nordic Council versus Scandinavian, and what are all of those things have in common? How are they different? So we wanted to be inclusive of all those areas. So that's kind of where we landed on it. Any other thoughts how we got to this point as I have my Mr.
Larry
Burns moment?
No, I was a little worried about the white making it more complicated. I tend to prefer a simpler palette, not so many colors. But I think this worked out, and I was glad to include it because for the flags, but also because the other thing that had occurred to me after the fact was that white was a good way to. I mean, there's the ice and snow thing, right? But also the sunstones, which they've recently discovered were an actual thing. These crystals that basically would refract sunlight and polarize it, so that they could actually tell direction by it. And it was basically an ancient form of compass, and they actually used it as a way to navigate even in the bad weather conditions. So I thought that was a cool little tidbit to include because for me it's about the stories.
Yes.
You know, the gold was obvious because, you know, the treasure of gold, and then also various other associations with gold in the stories and everything, and the kennings that involve gold and all that.
And the amber.
Exactly. Especially amber, you know, being gold, essentially. But yeah, no, so it had to grow on me how you did it, but it did.
Yeah.
Like a fungus. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those, anytime you do a design, it's something that you want to, you don't want to just do it and say, yep, that's it, good, done, boom. You know, and there's very, very much a temptation to do that because you're excited about it. You have to, and I know you've said this about like writing projects before, you have to let it sit.
Yep.
And come back to it a few days and you have your head cleared, you're in a different space.
Right.
You're not as amped on what you've just done and created, and then go, okay, do I still love it as much now as I did 2 days ago, as I did a week ago or whatever? Yeah. So that's kind of, it's sage advice in this or any kind of art or writing project.
We tell customers that too. Like, you know, if you're not sure about the tartan choice, then have a picture of it on your fridge or whatever and just look at it every day. And if you still don't hate it after a month, then
it may be the tartan for you.
So yeah, so this didn't take quite that long. I'd be worried if it took a month for you to come up with your design. But
there's certain things in, you know, in whether the business or whether tartan design or whatever, where I just get the goosebumps, and it's like, that's it, done. That's the one right there, and you just, you know. And with this one, I was feeling good about it going into it, but even like the little variations and playing with other colors and trying to put them in, I kept coming back to, it's not as good as this. It's not as good as this. I don't like it as much as this.
Yeah, because we tinker with brown a little bit.
Yep.
But it was not, just
Yeah, we tinker with the brown, we tinker with the purple, we think like other kind of symbolism to incorporate, but ultimately it didn't feel like it belonged in the design.
Yeah.
I love the symbolism, and I wish we could include things in a certain way, but at some point, the visual aesthetic of the design has to be balanced with the meaning.
Yeah, I was a little torn with some of those things because I wanted the again, I wanted some of the earthiness you get with weather tartans, and browns make that's easy. That's an easy way to do that. But I wanted the nautical feel because we're talking about a maritime culture.
Yes.
And the North Sea and all that. So that, I think we kind of got the balance pretty well here. You know, you were joking about how it's like, oh, I can feel the undulating waves, you know, and it's kind of like, well, okay, yeah. And I think it definitely, from an archaeological standpoint and a historical standpoint, those colors, like we said before, just that they nail how people would have dressed back in the time period that most of us go back to romantically when we're thinking about Nordic heritage. So yeah, it's super cool.
Excellent. So I hope you guys like it. Let us know in the comments. Do you like this as much as we like this? Hopefully you do. If you want to purchase it, by the time this video comes out, it will be available on our website. So you can go to usakilts.com and search Nordic Heritage, and this should pop up for you.
Yup.
Exactly. Till next time, boys and girls. Sanjava.
Skål.
Cool. Yes.